What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. The economic news seem to drag the blanket recently away from the Russian-Ukrainian war. Trump's tariffs, global stock market indices wobbling, and the oil prices take a nosedive in the beginning of April. Yet, despite the silent chaos, crude oil prices stay comfortably still kinda above the pain threshold for Russia's state budget. For now, at least. When OPEC Plus collectively decides to flood the world with extra barrels over the next 18 months, you know they are not just tweaking supply for absolutely no reason. There must be something behind it. Are we approaching a cheap oil stage? And if so, which surprises await the oil-soaked Russian economy then? We are not here to predict the oil prices. We are going to leave it to finance YouTubers, gurus, and crystal ball machinations, which honestly will yield you guys the same results with the same accuracy. But what we do know is the huge dependency of Russia on the price of this natural resource. And if things proceed as planned, it looks like that Russia is about to learn how fragile this oil pipeline really is. So no wonder, the Central Bank of Russia, along with its smartest financial wizards, already start sounding the alarms, trying to imply at least to Putin that the hidden costs of his war are about to start showing. Remember when OPEC's gatherings felt like solemn pledges to control oil prices? Either routine meetings or urgent discussions when the price goes unexpectedly in either direction, in one way or another after OPEC meeting concluded, there was some kind of sort of stability on the oil market and certainty, at least in most cases. Well, those days are now dead. Now Saudi Arabia and its OPEC Plus allies are cranking output higher over the 18-month marathon. The Saudis, incentivized by Kazakhstan sneaking extra barrels, want to so-called punish the fraudsters. It is rather simple. The oil market, just like any other type of market in the world, follows the very basic principle of supply and demand. The price goes too high, well, just unleash millions more barrels on the market, increase the supply, and, well, just like this, the price goes down back to equilibrium. Meanwhile, everyone's eager to flatter Trump's domestic audience by driving down pump prices and thus inflation. And once the key exporters accept the inevitable price decrease, they will unleash full-blown price wars under the slogan "Sell more to make up for the losses." Guess what it means? Even more oil on the market. So what does it all mean then for Russia? For Russia, as we call it, and this is a literal translation, a country sitting tight on the oil needle. It is the equivalent of putting the tablecloth from the table, where dozens of dishes with tanks, weapons, bullets, aircrafts, and other military dishes are so tightly packed. Crude oil Brent, for example, that once fetched $100 plus per barrel back in June 2022, after the war already started, could begin flirting with half than that. At the moment of recording this video, the price is already around $67. Sure, global demand still tags along, but when the collective pricing power surrenders, the shockwaves will ricochet all the way to Moscow. And this time, it most likely will not be just a temporary slump or an oil market correction. Highly likely, it will be a strategic reset, one where those who build their budgets on extremely expensive oil will scramble for cover when prices slide into the bargain territories. Now let's talk specifics about how exactly this will affect Russia's oil-rich economy. But first, a quick story. So yeah guys, some of you probably know that my wife is from Colombia, so obviously we go to that place quite often. What's the biggest concern we all have when we land in another country? Phone data. How do we keep using our phones the same way we did back home? Because honestly, as soon as we land, as soon as the plane touches ground, the perception of my iPhone changes completely, and now I see it as a just useless metal brick. Let me know down below in the comments if you feel exactly the same. What are the possible solutions? Well, you can go ahead and buy a physical SIM card, I don't know, in the airport. Wait in line, wait until they set up everything, pay one of their inconvenient plans, pay setup fees, and then place your own microscopic SIM card somewhere in the wallet, hoping it will not fall out the next time you open it. Another option is using public Wi-Fi's, but, well, you already know how dangerous it can be. Anyone literally can set up a hotspot, and as soon as you connect, Poof, that's it. That's it, it's done. All your information, bank cards, addresses, everything is stolen. Plus, it is obviously also inconvenient constantly looking for public Wi-Fi's. But what if I told you there is another superior solution? The solution that will make you feel like the future is finally here. I'm talking about Saily eSIM app, and it is as simple as it gets. Just open the app, select the country where you're planning to go, Colombia in my example, and you can select it out of the list of more than 190 companies. Choose how much data you want, and, well, that's it. The eSIM will be automatically installed. And just like that, once you land in a country of your destination and turn on your phone, you'll have immediate access to the internet. No more buying physical SIM cards, no lines, no public Wi-Fi, nothing. I was also, by the way, thinking what else can I show you in the app, but, well, that's pretty much it. It is that simple. Well, actually, there is one more thing. If you put the code Russian Dude during checkout and automatically apply it, it will give you immediate 15% off. If you travel to different countries, Saily is your irreplaceable companion. I know I'll personally be using it every time I go out of my country. For even better convenience, please scan the QR code you see right now on the screen to download Saily eSIM app, or use my link down below, saily.com/RussianDude. Don't forget about the code RussianDude for 15% off Saily plans. Thanks so much Saily for sponsoring this video, and now back to the program. Thank you guys so much for watching these promotions. It really helps the channel to stay independent. Now let's continue. We're about to talk about how the declining oil market can influence the entire Russian economy. Here is the paradox nobody in Kremlin wants to admit. Russia's economy brags about its so-called diversification, while clinging to oil revenue as it was the only source of oxygen. And yes, there are high-tech clusters, kinda agriculture, and even a patchwork of manufacturing. But when you crack open the export statistics, one fact slaps you right in the face. In 2023, for example, crude oil alone accounted for roughly 1/3 of Russia's 394 billion in exports. In 2024, it was already lower than that due to lower oil prices and attacks of Ukrainians against Russian oil infrastructure. But still, the numbers were way too high for a supposedly sanctioned economy. Add natural gas, coal and refined petroleum products, and you are staring at 70+% of total export earnings utterly related to only natural resources of Russia. This is where the so-called pipeline paradox comes into picture, which explains why and how Russia can see through sanctions and stock market meltdowns. Selling oil at $80, $90 or even $140 per barrel yields a fat profit margin even after you subtract production and shipping costs. That excess profit acts like a shock absorber, muting the impact of arms sales decline, which are down 65% by the way, or the collapse of export industry strangled by sanctions. A mere $5 swing in oil price can dwarf the death of entire sectors. That cushion of cash lets the Kremlin bankroll everything from spontaneous IT projects, most of which are simply trying to reinvent the wheel by copying something already existing in the West, and as a result ultimately failing, to lavish infrastructure schemes presented by Putin's friends, well, therefore failing as well. I guess the reason here is quite obvious, right? Well, they just steal the money, if this was not obvious enough. That's the biggest problem of such economy, and the way its masters handle everything. When everything is good, they steal and spend like there is no tomorrow. But when cheap oil arrives, that thin cushion of reserves shrinks, and the whole house of cards obviously collapses. The regime of Putin is trained not to think far ahead, couple years at best. That's why when true financial horrors arrive, very few will be prepared. Thinks the war on illegal substances is unstoppable. A gram of white stuff might cost $5 to produce, just to be sold for $100 in New York City. This mind-blowing profit margin includes bribery, tunnels, submarines, private militias, money laundering networks, you name it, everything. Even if law enforcement seizes half of the shipments, the cartels are still swimming in cash. Otherwise, there won't be anyone left due to unprofitable nature of this so-called business, right? Oil is no different if you think about it. Its profit spread creates a shadow economy where Russia can slash through sanctions like a hot knife through butter. It has deployed a shadow fleet of tankers, unloading and reloading mid-ocean under the cover of darkness, sometimes under the escort from the warships. Behind the scenes, shell companies, phantom bank accounts, bribes to foreign officials, and complex kickback schemes turn sales into a labyrinth of illicit transactions. The flagship Ural-grade oil often trades at a steep discount to Brent oil, factoring in shipment hassles and legal nightmares. Yet, as long as market prices stay above production costs, there is room to swallow these extra expenses and still walk away with a nice fat stack of bills. Imagine trying that with a smartphone or a car. If a German automaker, for example, tried to reroute shipments through third world country docks, reload the cargo at sea, bribe customs agents, and then offer the end consumers a nice and shadow discount, demand would vanish in a heartbeat. I mean, would you buy, Toyota Corolla for $250,000? I don't think so. Cars cannot be sold like contraband because profit margins are already razor thin. There is simply no room to absorb illegal costs. But oil's obscene margin means you can sprinkle in all sorts of illegal fees and still outpace legitimate competition. If oil profits are the iron in Russia's economic armor, they're also the holes in its defense. History has taught this lesson twice already, in 2008 first, and then again in 2014, when oil price crashes slammed the ruble and plunged the economy into crisis. Back then, high reserves and a budget surplus let Russia ride out the storm. The central bank could jack up interest rates, the ruble recovered, and life limped back to something resembling normal. Fast forward now to 2025, and the oil fortress walls begin to creak. 4 straight years of budget deficits have drained the reserves. Interest rates sit an enormous 21% for 6 months straight unchanged, challenging any chance of monetary maneuvering. Meanwhile, the entire federal budget revolves around war expenditures that increase by the day. Long gone are the days when a drop to $40 per barrel was an annoyance. Today, it could flip the system on its head. If crude oil prices collapse to $30 or below, and let's be real, Trump's next trade tariff could trigger precisely such a meltdown, then it is estimated that the total Russian export will decline by enormous 40%. I guess, well, that's one of the best representations of saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. The real plot twist here? Well, this time the economy has zero cushion. No surplus, no savings, no reserves, nada. When the 2008 crash hit, Russia could tweak fiscal and monetary levers. In 2004, high reserves soaked up the blow. In 2025, the war chest is already empty, debt is climbing, and those old tricks no longer work. The Kremlin faces a brutal choice: either slash war funding and risk military collapse, or keep printing money and watch inflation devour whatever is left of public support. Either way, the grand illusion of resilience completely shatters. One of Russia's biggest banks, Sberbank's boss, Herman Gref, dropped the bomb recently. Russia's factories, he said, and plants are already running at 84% of their production capacity, and you cannot squeeze more juice out of this lemon. The so-called by Kremlin unbreakable Russian economy is literally running on all cylinders, with no extra gear to accelerate. Yet, last year's GDP grew by 3.6%, assuming we believe the official statistics coming from the regime of Putin. Sure, it looks impressive on paper until you ask who actually benefits. So, the question is, why the surge? It is not car manufacturing or tech unicorns fueling this increase, no. It is bombs, bullets, tanks, drones and howitzers, all produced thanks to state subsidies. Weapons factories are booming, munitions orders never stop, and the Kremlin is pouring cash into defense industrial black hole, quite literally. Former European Bank for Reconstruction and Development economist Sergei Guriev puts it quite plainly. Wartime GDP is a very lousy representation of real living standards or long-term growth. Makes sense, right? After all, mortar shares do not build schools or hospitals, even if they paint very beautiful numbers on the paper. Now enter the Central Bank of Russia, with its key interest rate jacked up to 21%. Gref applauds the rational policy, warning at the same time that previous similar political rate shenanigans Turkey ended up in inflationary nightmares. Here is where it really gets ugly. Unemployment hit record low 2.4% at the beginning of this year, and the real wages spiked 11.3% by the end of 2024. Yet it did not happen because everyone living the dream, but because there simply are not enough hands to fill civilian jobs. The military now dangling sign-on bonuses in millions of rubles and monthly salaries that rival oil and gas higher management pay is the ugly proof. In addition to that, sign a contract and cancel your debts up to 10 million rubles. What do we have as a result? Low unemployment and high wage growth, two of the biggest contributors to the inflation. The wage growth is primarily in military sector, meaning other people become increasingly poor. The interest rates are at a sky-high 21%, and oil prices declined already more than 40% from its peaks. Does any of this sound concerning to a war economy so heavily dependent on oil and other natural resources? Would you, as a central bank employee, sound an alarm as well? Please guys, let me know down below in the comments. Well, there you have it guys, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thanks so much Saily for sponsoring this video. Once again, all the useful links are down below. Thanks so much for watching, see you on Tuesday. We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.